Thanks everyone for being here. My name is Q Mangus. I'm the product marketing manager here at Micro Focus, and we're joined by Stephen Cohen, who's a sales engineer. Um, and today we're going to be talking about Retain for GroupWise. We're going to be talking about other platforms as well, but principally focusing on how Retain can archive the GroupWise email solution. Some things I just wanted to make mention of to begin with. There's been a big shift in the way that archiving is thought of. For forever, it was email archiving, right? Archiving was about email. It was about taking your email, storing it in a system that you throw in the corner. You've checked a box and you say, okay, I'm good. I'm compliant. I have an archive. But that has since shifted to where now archiving is more of an information archiving or an archiving 2.0, where it's obviously still about email and you need to archive your email. And of course, we're going to be talking about how Retain works with GroupWise email. But more than that, you need to be able to have a system, an archiving system where you can archive all of your electronic communication, and that includes social media, mobile communication data, in addition to your email. Plus, your archive needs to be something that you can easily access. That if it's just something that's sitting in the corner that that's over there, and you're like, okay, I'm good. That's not quite enough. You need to be able to have a system, an archive where you can easily get to that data, where you can use that data in case of litigation, in case of audits, in case or just to find information and manage your data. So that's where there's been a big shift in archiving from just an email store that isn't used much to where now it's more of a system where you can use it to manage your data, to ensure that your email system runs better, and to have that full view of all of your electronic communication. Um, and then moving along with archiving is really there is that aspect of managing your data, but there's also that aspect of being able to comply with industry regulations. So some things that depending on the type of organization that you are, would depend on what you're really concerned about and why you should be archiving. So if you're in financial services, obviously you need to be thinking about data leaking out of your organization, or trade secrets, stock information. You need to make sure that you have your communication data archived and readily available, and that your data is subject to review. So you need to be able to quickly and easily get to that. For healthcare, of course, it's all about PHI. You need to make sure that that data is protected, and that communications can't contain medical records and payment histories unless it's encrypted. For government, once again, you need to be able to quickly and easily get to data, perform, be ready for Freedom of Information Act requests, and you need to be able to adhere to that within 10 days. And for every other organization, you need to be able to preserve your data, your electronic communication data, in case of litigation, in case of an audit, or accusation preparation, being able to have that oversight of data, to be able to see what's going on. And then, of course, we have GDPR looming for all those European organizations and anybody who deals in Europe with the European Union. So be aware that that's something you need to be prepared for, and archiving can help with that. And in particular, with privacy, a good archive, and we're going to be talking about Retain, gives the ability to have that data that's encrypted, whether that's on premise or in the cloud, and Retain can do both, and that it's secure and can stay private. And then also, with Retain for GDPR in particular, you need to be able to make sure that access is tightly controlled, access to the data, and Retain can do that through role-based permissions. And then only users with granted rights can access the archive and certain features and functionality. And all access is monitored and can be viewed via the audit trail. Then another thing with GDPR is that right to be forgotten. So if a customer or individual requests that right to have their data expunged or removed, you need to be able to do that as well to comply with GDPR, and Retain has that functionality as well. So then specifically some of the regulations, I won't go through each one of these, but these are things that you need to be aware of and be thinking of to ensure that you have a compliant archive with these regulations and that you're fulfilling what is required of you. And like I touched on, those industry specific concerns, these regulations really are some of the reasons why you have those concerns. So I encourage you to look into those and make sure that you're complying with those and of course have an archive that complies with those, which Retain helps enable that. Some things just to be aware of moving along. Gartner recently said that about 75% of global companies will be involved in legal or regulatory action. So as I stated before, even if you're not in an regulated industry, there's a good chance that you could be involved in some sort of audit or litigation here before the end of the year. So just know that that could be coming and you need to be prepared for it. The other thing too, and where an archive is good, is that ability to manage your data. Have data in a central repository that you can easily get to that will, of course, reduce the amount of data on your live systems. And that is important because it's been shown that the volume of digital business data is growing at about a rate of about 40 to 60% each year. And what an archive can do for you is reduce that and help you manage that. And it will make your live email system run better because you can take that off of your live GroupWise, put it into the archive, and other email systems as well, and put it into your archive, and then manage that data and reduce the amount of storage needs you have and reduce what's on your live system. The interesting thing is that even though, as we stated, all the regulations, data management shows that you should be archiving all of these different kinds of platforms, there is a disparity between what people are doing and what they should be doing. And so most people have an email archive, but what is missing is that archive of other platforms like instant messaging, Facebook, text messaging, Twitter. So just know that that's part of it, and you should be archiving. Of course, you should be archiving your email. We're going to talk to that today, but you should be archiving those other platforms as well. And so just really quick, I just want to make a case for each one of these. Mobile archiving, of course, as you know, you have many mobile devices that are in your organization that your employees are using, so you need to be able to manage that, manage how they're accessing your data, what they're accessing, and having oversight on their mobile communication data. And so it's important that you have a mobile communication policy, that you have oversight on that data, and just be aware that mobile communication data needs to be viewed the same as email or social media when it comes to archiving. And if you're dealing with a lot of BYOD where your employees are bringing their own device, a good solution for that is a dual persona where you have a solution where they can use one phone number for texting and calling for business, and then one where they could use the native dialer for their personal stuff. So that's a good practice for BYOD. Then when it comes to social media, of course, you need to have oversight on your social accounts and be able to archive that to be able to have that oversight as well. But of course, the big thing is making sure that you have policies and technology. So when it comes to all of your information, your email, your social media, and your mobile, you need to have policies that state what is and is not appropriate, and then you need to have technology to support that. And that's of course what we're going to focus on today, is that technology to be able to have oversight, to be able to manage your data, which is in Retain Unified Archiving. I'm going to turn the time over to Stephen Cohen, sales engineer for Micro Focus. He's going to walk us through more about Retain itself, and then give us a demo of Retain. So, Stephen, are you there?
Thanks a lot, Q. Hello, everyone. My name is Stephen Cohen, Senior System Engineer at Micro Focus. Happy to be with you today to talk about Retain Unified Archiving. We're gonna focus a little bit here on archival of GroupWise, but we're gonna touch on a lot of the things that Q mentioned. Basically, Q gave us good reasons as to why you should be interested in listening to me. So we're gonna go into a little bit more detail here. So retain unified archiving. This slide is basically gives us a few bullet points as to why we call it unified archiving. That circle diagram at the bottom right of the corner, we're going to kind of focus on that over the course of the next few slides here. So there's a term that I like to use, and it wasn't a term that I came up with, is a term that customers kept asking me about back in the day. The term is one pane of glass. They want to have all their data and communications under one pane of glass so that their auditors or legal people or whoever needs to be able to access this data does not have to go to multiple repositories or silos. They can get all their answers and all the queries can be done via looking through one pane, and Retain offers you that one pane of glass. And that's why we call it unified archiving, because it brings communication from email down to social messaging up to mobile all together in one pane of glass and one unified archiving. So first bullet, archiving of email, mobile, social media, and instant messaging. Instant messaging is technically different, but it's all under that social module. Flexible archive access. So that's what we're gonna focus our demo on, is the access of these archives, how easy it is and how flexible it is. We have multiple ways to get at the data for end users. So the key word here that I want everyone to remember when we talk about Retain is flexibility. There's multiple different ways to get at answers to various problems that Retain tackles. Intelligent archiving, you can of course build policies around what you want to be archived, from the simplest, let's archive everything, to the most complicated, which we see in healthcare systems where different sort of records are handled differently. And of course, built-in e-discovery. Retain for GroupWise. So Retain has a rich history and a long history. Retain's been on the market for about 15 years now. If for those familiar with the story, I don't want to bore anyone here, but we got our start with archiving of GroupWise. So this is where we're from. That's our heritage, and of course, it's come a long way from there. From GroupWise to instant messaging like Facebook, etc. So they're your support. We support GroupWise versions going back basically since those early days. We archive directly out of the email system. So the Retain system is not sitting out at the gateway, for instance, collecting data as it's moving to and from. We're grabbing it directly out of the end user mailboxes. Now, there's a lot of advantages to doing it that way. And mainly the number one advantage is we're able to gather a lot of metadata that you otherwise would not have access to. Whether somebody read an email or not, for instance, that's kind of important, especially in a legal discovery case. You need to show that, yes, this user actually read that email. Okay, otherwise, if you're archiving at the gateway, well, that has no conception of whether the email's been read. We know what folders the emails are in. We know what categories have been applied to those emails. So you can use that metadata to even apply different policies as far as retention is concerned. So you can handle, emails that are in this folder as private, then you don't archive, for instance, or you need to keep those for longer periods than most. You can have the trash can items that were archived in the trash can drop out of the archive after a year, but everything else is kept, for 7 years, etc. So a lot more flexibility is available to you when you're getting that metadata, when you have access to that metadata. We have GroupWise client plugins, which allow single sign-on access to the Retain archive. We'll see a screenshot of that in a moment. And of course, message deletion. You could configure your Retain system to delete items that it's after they've been archived, or have a different range of items that you want to have the Retain system delete for you. That feature is available in Retain. If you ask me, as I put my GroupWise administrator hat on, I probably would still leave that duty to GW check, expire, and reduce. However, our customers have asked for this feature, so we put it in for them. And we're always listening to our customers. And Retain can do that message pruning and deletion for you as well. Now, kind of stepping away a little bit away from GroupWise to the broader view here of the email ecosystem here, mixed message environments. So Retain works. It's a modular system. The way Retain works is via a modular system. You will license the module that is relevant to you. So, for example, if you want to archive your GroupWise system, then you will license the GroupWise module, and that will allow you to do that very easily. However, we work very well in a mixed message environment. You might have, and in fact, I speak to you right now from a mixed message environment. I'm on Exchange while Q's on GroupWise. We have multiple email systems here. Retain handles that extremely well. So it's super important for companies that do a lot of acquisitions, such as the one that we're a part of today. You bring with those acquisitions whole email platforms, and you're able to archive those email platforms into Retain. So for example, in our case here, we have a GroupWise module running alongside of an Exchange module, and then alongside of an Office 365 module, because the Exchange system is a hybrid cloud and on-prem Exchange system. We have those three modules working in tandem to archive those three messaging systems without skipping a beat. Retain can do that very easily without having to set up any additional hardware. Browsing email within Retain Archive, we're going to see that, and folder replications, it looks familiar, and the email plugin, we're going to get to those screenshots right now. This is the screenshot of the web access archive viewer, the Retain archive viewer from the web. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide because our live demo will go through some of this. Next here, this is a GroupWise client. The Retain plugin for the GroupWise client will add that button at the top here, follow the purple arrow, open Retain archive. The user simply clicks that, and that's going to open their web browser into this view, the one that we just saw. Single sign-on, so they do not need to sign in twice. Moving along. And this is the web access plugin for GroupWise Web Access. Still, we have a new option here, purple arrow. Clicking that Retain button will open up that Retain web view, single sign-on again, just like the GroupWise client plugin did. The web access plugin does a similar thing. And this is our plugin for the Outlook client. So for users on Outlook, this client can do a lot of things. It can cache data inside of Outlook. It can allow them to browse and search their archives from within Outlook, which is what you're looking at in the screenshot right here. So lots of functionality here for our Outlook customers. As well, one other client that was not mentioned in the slide here is we do have a mobile application for iOS and Android where mobile users can download this application out of Google Play or iOS App Store and then have a sign into their archive. Q touched upon this one, Retain mobile archiving. So he basically listed out some reasons as why mobile archiving is super important. We've been in this space for since 2007. So we basically blazed the trail of mobile archiving. Our first partner back in those days was BlackBerry. So we were able to archive messages sent from BlackBerry devices. And today, of course, that has been expanded over Android and iOS as well. So the mobile archiving story is a very interesting story. We don't have time to get into it because that's an entire webinar in itself. But the quick overview here is that we can capture messages off of Android, BlackBerry, and iOS. Depending on what platform you're talking about, we'll talk about different technologies. These two operating systems, Android and iOS, are greatly different from each other. So to handle them, you gotta really think about your deployment. You know, BYOD, corporate issued, what carriers you're using. There are so many different variables in the mobile story that it's hard to really cover in the space of one slide here. But we have an entire ecosystem of partners from BlackBerry to AT&T and Verizon to companies such as CellTrust and Telemessage that allow us to capture and allow your users to be regulated and give them the opportunity to still use their mobile devices while complying with the regulation. Depending on what your deployment looks like and what policies you're going for, we will customize a solution pretty much tailor-made, because really no two customers are the same in the mobile case. Tailor-made for you. Any questions about how we do that, feel free to ask, and quite likely we can take the conversation offline. Social messaging. So of course, Facebook, Twitter, all those logos you see on the bottom left side of the circle there. Some customers, education, finance. It's important to be able to audit what people are posting on Facebook and comments, and keep those that data available for years down the road. Facebook and Twitter, I mean, they do not make it easy for you to discover data based upon narrow criteria. It's there's a ton of data inside of Twitter. There's a ton of data inside of Facebook. There are no granular tools that allow you to find out, oh, who replied to message from 2 years ago, and it's hard to bring up that data without having to search through your entire Twitter feed. On and off network archiving, which means that users can be working from home and posting on Facebook or Twitter, and we can grab the information because we integrate directly with the APIs of Facebook and Twitter. So we don't have an agent running on the workstations. We integrate with the API, and we dredge the feeds in real time. Okay, so on to the demo. So just give me one moment here, and I'll get the demo prepared. All right, so you're staring at my desktop. I hope it's not too messy. We're looking at a web browser here because of all the interfaces that Retain offers. The web browser is pretty much far and away the one that is most popular with end users, because it's super fast, easy to use. And I mean, we hope to show you that in the next few minutes here. You're presented with a sign-on here, a log on. You will put in your GroupWise ID and password here. This is a public demo server, so if you'd like to come over to retain.guava.com after the webinar, feel free to log in with the guest and password of password. It's super secret, I know. And then you can access the server that I'm playing around with right now. The administrator, we'll log in here. The administrator has access to the administration interface here. I want to first, I'm not going to talk too much about the administration interface because that tends to put people to sleep, but I'm going to focus on the most important parts of it. That is user management, audit logging, and module configuration. So those modules that I mentioned earlier, there's your GroupWise module, your Exchange module, mobile module, BlackBerry, Google Apps, etc. We have tons of modules. We can even capture your Bloomberg messages, your AT&T module there for our AT&T partnership, etc. So, for example, the AT&T module will allow you to capture all text messages sent from all your AT&T devices without having to install any application on the phone. It happens at AT&T. They make copies and send it directly to your archive. That's via our partnership with AT&T. The Verizon module will be there in the next release, which is slated for Valentine's Day. So that's next month. So we'll be excited for that one. Users and group management, super important here. So the default group, let me just scroll down a bit here. These are all the roles and access levels that you can apply to various users and groups of users in the system. There's a lot that you can do here. It's very granular, which is important. So you can really tailor and tweak the minimum access required for the particular end user or groups of end users. The default group is applied to everybody by default, hence the name. So as you can see, it's quite a bit restricted. There's not a lot that's enabled here other than viewing, forwarding, and printing. While my guest user that I'm logged in with today, this user is an administrator, so you can see that today we're going to be able to do whatever we want with the data inside of Retain. Access to mailboxes is very easy, so you can add granular control to who can see what. So if there's an investigation across Emma, Jean, and Jennifer here, you can simply add those to the user or groups of users that need access to those mailboxes. and then provision that access. So you don't need to give access to the entire archive for an investigation across 3 users. There's many reasons why that doesn't make sense. So you can really get granular here and narrow and fulfill very security principles of least privilege, which is important in today's environment. The audit log, obviously very important here. A bunch of stuff's being audited in the system when people are logging in and or failing to log in for whatever reason. People conducting searches, the criteria are recorded in the audit log. You'll see how many results were returned in these queries. Important. Sometimes you need to audit how many records people need to search across or open, and you can see what they've been opened, if they've exported something, flagged it, etc. The searching interfaces here in Retain are very intuitive and easy to use here. This is the web browse mode interface here that we saw a screenshot of, so users can get in here and I mean, there's a certain type of end user. I'm sure you might know a person like this, but they don't do keyword searches for anything. They have to browse their folders and emails to find what they're looking for. So of course, this browse mode interface is quite important for that particular end user. So it's important that we have all the emails in the folders that they expect them to be in. So this view here allows them to be able to do that. All those actions at the top are all controlled via those access control level lists that I showed you earlier. So depending on what rights you have to the system will determine what actions you're allowed to perform in these interfaces here. Again, the guest user has access to all actions, so I can do anything such as placing items on legal hold. So if I place a litigation hold or on an item or an entire mailbox or archive, for instance, no action will be able to remove those items until the legal hold has first been manually removed from those items. Confidential tagging, if I tag an item as confidential, that will hide the item from view from any user that might have access to this archive, but does not have access to view confidential items. Tagging. You can apply or remove tags. There's 2 types of tags: personal tags, which are set up by the user, maintained by the user. Not super exciting. More exciting are the global tags, which are set up by administration and are shared between all users that have access to global tags. These tags allow users to split the workflow amongst themselves. So for instance, you can have one user conduct a search and flag certain items to one of these tags or to a case. And then you can have another user log in later on and conduct actions on those items. Easily bring those up, maybe put it on legal hold, maybe unflag it or mark it as irrelevant, etc., etc. So a really important, really simple feature, but super important feature. There's the old big X delete button, which will remove the item from the archive. No way to restore that item, so use with care. Normally that action is not available to anyone, really. There are reasons why it exists in Retain. Q mentioned one earlier. There are jurisdictions in the world that mandate users their right to delete their data, such as jurisdictions in Europe, as Q mentioned. So that option needs to be available for those customers. Forward, quite simply forward the marked items to email address or multiple email addresses. Export, this will export the data to PDF. So here's an example PDF. We see what it actually does is it creates a PDF portfolio. Let me try zooming out of here a little bit. Let me try clicking the correct button this time. Right. So I've exported 6 items, and so you have a little table of contents here where you can browse the items. Let me just change the view here. And this, of course, this opens up in Adobe. So this is, I call this the quick and dirty export feature of Retain. You need to get a piece of email or mobile message out of the system in a portable format, this is the way to do it. You can optionally encrypt it, so it's secured by a password. You'll notice that binary attachments are embedded into this PDF, so you can open or save those binaries. So really a slick way to get the data out of Retain very easily. Restore, that will restore the item back to the mail system. All right, let's talk a little bit about searching, because that's probably what you will do in the archive for the majority of the time. So let's just take a moment to switch over to the searching interface here. All right, so there's two search interfaces in Retain. Don't pay attention to the last one there that says legacy search. That's just a holdover from the old days. This server is, I am proud to say, been up and functional for about 10 years. It's only been upgraded. It's never been reinstalled. So we have vestiges going back to the Retain 1.0 days, which remain here. So until I'm forced to reinstall from scratch, I will be happy to continue upgrading the system as is. So normally any customer that has bought the system in the past 3 years would not see this legacy search, but we will see it today. But we won't really use it. However, the new search interfaces, well, I say new, though they're about 3 years old by now, allow very, very slick and quick access to the data. This is the easy search interface, and the advanced search interface I'll talk about in a few minutes. The easy search interface, I would expect your typical user, such as myself or you, to use to find what you're looking for. While the advanced interface, I would imagine more of your auditor type user, or the person engaged in legal discovery would make use of that interface there. So this interface I like a lot because it's super fast and easy to use. So you have this giant text box at the top, so it's quite evident what you need to do there, and that's type in your keyword. What are you looking for? The system then responds very fast with a few things. Number one is search term suggestions. That's what you see the drop down there. So based upon the the contents of your archive and the contents of your text box there, the system will make some suggestions. Google's been doing that for years, so people are familiar with that. Now, in the background, those are called instantaneous search results. They're called instantaneous search results because they happen pretty much instantaneously, and you don't need to do anything for them to appear there. As you're typing in the keyword, the system automatically starts creating the response list here. You don't need to click that search button there. The keyword there is highlighted for you across all the metadata. So that's a nice convenience for the end user. It's highlighted, even the folder name. So you notice at the far right here, we have folder name. We're indexing that as well. So we're able to highlight that and the keyword in the folder name as well. The results are sorted by relevance by default. So the more relevant the item, the higher up on the list it will bubble up to. What makes an item more relevant is, where the keyword shows up, how often it shows up. So if the keyword is showing up in the subject line, that's going to be a lot more relevant, because most of the time people remember subject lines and they're looking for subject line matter, while less of the time it's message body. However, all of these full columns saved for mailbox and folder are manually sortable. Okay, so this kind of returns, as you can imagine, across all metadata. So if it's the keywords in the attachment, if it's in the subject, if it's in the folder name, it's going to return. Of course, if it's in the email address or to and from as well. Now, the result is you get a lot of hits, right? So in this particular case, I have 52,107. So there's a lot to say about that particular number, because there's good news, bad news. The good news is, wow, that is a very fast response time for displaying 2,085 pages of results. It took about 1 second, and my system does not meet the minimum system requirements for Retain even, because I'm just the system engineer, and the developers get the fancy new hardware, and they actually just got refreshed last week, and now they all have 2 screens and giant Dell Precision workstations or Latitude. We won't get into that. I'm just a little bit jealous. needless to say, I'm working on like 10-year-old hardware here. It's all good because Retain is a super fast and lightweight system while at the same time being super powerful here. So 52,000, watch how quick this is. Okay, I'm going to skip to the last page of results. That's page, I went from page 1 to 2085. The system didn't need to think about it or reload or, you know, anything. It's just there. And these are a bunch of YouTube comments here. Random page, 3, 4, 5, boom. As you see, these items are less relevant, so the keyword is not showing up in the subject line. But if you, as a GroupWise administrator on the phone here, have been struggling with the 8F01 error and you're having a tough time finding some help from Google, feel free to log into retain.guava.com while we have archived that NGW thread from 6 years ago. So you know, who knew that today's webinar would help you solve that horrible problem? But that was a joke. Otherwise, you can just call our support line. All right, so going back to page 1 here. So still, the bad news here is that, you know, gee, that's a lot of results, and I don't really particularly want to spend the next few hours going through 2,000 pages. So every option on the left side of the screen here allow you to help yourself from that problem. These options allow you to filter in, pretty much do a search within a search to find what you're looking for. So if I know that the item I'm looking for contains that keyword in the subject, I can click on subject here. Now, I want you to pay attention because watch how fast it's going to filter 52,000 results when I click subject. A lot of people don't even notice the change. It's that fast. I went from 2,000 pages to 85. I'm at 2,100 results now. Let's filter again. This time, let's do sent items. Now I'm down to 56. I'm down to a few pages. Easily find what I'm looking for now. I went from 52,000 to 56 with 2 mouse clicks and about 2 seconds of waiting. Really fun to use interface. And that's really the term I like to use, fun, because it's just a joy to find the items you're looking for in an interface such as this. In fact, if I received an email from Q 3 days ago, I'm not searching my GroupWise client or my Outlook client for that. I'm coming to my Retain server, which is archiving it every day for me. And I'm finding it here. It's just so much easier. That one pane of glass that I mentioned, it comes to light very clearly here. Not only do I have email here, there's an SMS message right there. There's a BBM enterprise message. There's a Facebook wall post. There's a pin message for those who still use a BlackBerry Classic. There's only one person in our company that does that, and that's Carson. Twitter, all one pane of glass, all these results. Super easy. You can filter on date range, you can filter by mailbox, you can filter by item type. So if you just want to see those mobile messages, click on messages and there they are. Really fast, really easy. So that's why I like easy mode interface here, and that's why I think the majority of people will like it too. However, advanced is just as fast, except allows you to get really more granular. So you open up your query builder here. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. You're probably all familiar with how this will work. You have a wide variety of criteria that you can search through. Field contains phrase, contains words, doesn't contains words, ends with, starts with. Put in your keyword in here. You got full Boolean search. You can do nested queries, sugar or spice, and something else. And obviously we know where we're going from here. Not ice, but nice. And you can put in a date range then, or only show me things that are on legal hold, or and deal with a certain tag, case ABC. Goes on and on. There's no limit to this. In fact, you can go on and on and on. In fact, you can also put regular expressions. These fields support regular expressions. So you want to find something that has, the letter B within 3 spaces of, the numeral 4 or whatever. Regular expressions allow you to do that. You want to find a social security number or a credit card number. Regular expression can do that for you easily without you having to break your neck. You can save these. You can load these queries. So I'll load one up that I did for another demo. This is a bunch of keywords over a date range. So the results display really fast as usual for retain. You can maybe add a keyword or change a date range. Easy to do. I have a lot of customers that came over to me from Google Vault and I wondered why. They said that the searching was too hard, and I then wondered why again, because Google is known for easy searching, but not for their Google Vault apparently. You have to type in some syntax language and so on. I never actually used it myself, but they were very happy to be able to point and click and have interfaces such as these. So if you load up that same query that I did, you'll be able to find Rachel's quick lemon chicken in my archive. So if you're not worried about that GroupWise error, then I'm sure you're going to have time for dinner tonight. I highly recommend this recipe. It showed up last year or 2 years ago, and you can read it. You can get the link to that recipe here. Of course, there it is. Rachel Ray. That name is familiar. I can't recall where that's coming from though. So that is our web interfaces here. We can talk a little bit about our publisher. So not only can you export the PDF, as I showed you before, you can also export it to our publisher, which is a Medium. It's our proprietary format. And what it does is it actually creates a folder on your desktop or wherever you want to put it. And this folder contains the exported data encrypted, and also this program called the viewer, which is what you're looking at behind here, but there's all the DLLs and the executable right there. Basically what I'm trying to say is this folder here is portable. Put it into any Windows PC and you launch this viewer tool, and then you can search through the data because there could be thousands of items exported here. You can go ahead and redact the data. So if you need to make reply to an open records request and you need to clean that data up before it goes along, you can go ahead and redact it, but before you send this. So really cool tool here, really easy to use. For our Outlook customers, we showed you a little bit of a screenshot, but this is the client I'm using. The screenshot was Outlook 2013. I think this one here is 2010. I'm the type of person that is, if it ain't broke, don't change it. So I haven't upgraded Outlook yet. Thankfully, we still support 2010. So I'm sure next year I might be forced to upgrade my Outlook, but so far, so good here. So what it does is a few things. The coolest part about it is it actually syncs your archive data to your workstation. It's not the entire archive, because goodness, I don't want to have a 10-year archive in my Outlook. That doesn't make sense at all. But it's designed to sync about 1 year worth of archive data. The reason 1 year is because all the statistics show that 95% of the time when somebody needs to get out a piece of email, it's not older than 3 months. Okay, so you can have that data available, cached on Outlook, so you can quickly get at that. Even if you're on the plane or outside of the coverage of network, you can get that reply, search, etc. However, if you want to search the entire online archive, you have a handy retain easy search tool built into Outlook, or an advanced search tool built into Outlook, and that will search the entire online archive. So very cool for our Outlook clients, very important tool. Everything you see here comes included with the module, so there's nothing extra to pay for the different interfaces here. Getting back to my slide deck here. So that does it for the demo. Let's continue on, see if there's anything else that Q wants me to talk about. This is pretty much overview here. So we talked a lot today. So some key features that we want you to walk away with fresh in mind. Multi-platform. The system can be installed on Windows or Linux. It can be deployed in the cloud or on premises. Mixed environment, unified. GroupWise and Exchange on-prem in your environment, no problem. You got Office 365 in there, want to also archive mobile, no problem. Again, the flexible archive access, e-discovery tools, you got your rule tagging, your confidential tagging, and email archive and archive migrations are also something that we deal with as well. And there are your next steps. So I think that that just about does it. Q, are those URLs still good? I know these are changing as the days go by here as we integrate with Micro Focus.
So those URLs are still good, then, and they will continue to be good. It will just redirect you to Micro Focus once it's all moved over. So guava.com is still live out there, and in the next month or so, it will all be migrated to microfocus.com. But those will continue to work. They'll just redirect you. And then, Stephen, we do have a couple of questions here. And once again, everyone, feel free to ask any questions you may have. These are some good ones so far. Is going back to when you were talking about attachments, are the content of attachments searchable, so like a Word or Excel document?
Yes, absolutely. Great question. So those attachments will be indexed at the same time that the email is indexed. So yes, PDFs, Word, PowerPoint, all those OpenOffice or LibreOffice text documents, HTML documents, they're all indexed. If I go back to my admin interface here, you can, I'll prove that I'm not lying because it's always good to be honest here. If I click on my index tab, you will see below all the various attachment types that are indexed in the system. So those are all be keyword searchable. Of course, if you're dealing with a password protected PDF or a password protected Word file, I'm not going to be able to index that for you because it's password protected. At the same time, I'll also mention that the archive itself is single instanced. Okay, this was not on any slide, but it's important. So we deduplicate everything for you. We compress everything for you. So the storage engine is extremely storage efficient. It's a storage efficient a storage system as you're going to find on the market today. So if your storage areas are starting to bloat, you're getting a little bit concerned about the extra storage required for this, don't be. You don't need to put this on super fast storage. We can split the index off and you can put the index on a faster storage, but the bulk of your data on a slower storage, we can do that. And we, of course, we compress and deduplicate that further for you.
A couple more here is retain an appliance or an installable product.
Retain would be the latter there. It's an installable product. We sell you the software only. In fact, if you go to our webpage, you can download a 30-day fully functional trial of Retain. It's going to come down as a zip file. You'll then install the resulting installer on either a Windows platform, Windows Server platform, or a SUSE Linux Enterprise Server platform. The instructions are all available online. Our guide is extremely detailed and at the same time doesn't stretch on for 400 pages. So it's something you can actually read, and trust me, I'm in your shoes, and not, kill yourself. So it's a great tool, and that comes with the software. It's super easy to install. In fact, we don't typically do installation with our customers, though we offer the service, but it's so easy, most customers can get through it in about 2 hours.
Great. And of course, it can be cloud. We have a cloud version as well that we can host for you, so you won't even have to install it yourself. That's another option. Another one is, can we push older content like Outlook 2003 archives into Retain?
Great question. Well, the answer is super easy. So if you have an Outlook archive, and hopefully that's going to be in PST format, we have a PST import tool somewhere here. I have it, I think, on my desktop somewhere, or I might not have it. Oh yeah, so the Retain PST importer tool. I can't show you because I don't have any PSTs here, but this tool comes with Retain, and yeah, that's going to easily allow you to bring in that data.
Great. I think that's all the questions we have. If you have any questions, feel free to put those through. Yeah, it looks like all of them. Thanks everyone for your time and for the information, Stephen. Great information. Just a note once again is that this is being recorded, so you will get an email shortly with the recording. And thanks everyone for your time.
Thank you, Q. Thank you, everyone.
Have a good one.